Okay, so I did recently a video about the casual wardrobe from Dead Poet Society. Obviously, most of the movie they wear their school uniform and it takes place in classrooms and things. But, there's like one scene where they kind of wear flannel shirts and one scene where they wear sweaters, and I was questioning if, some of the flannel shirts were maybe out of character for some of the characters, especially Mr. Cameron. Would he be, more inclined to wear like an Oxford shirt in his spare time or whatever? And of course, Knox has that killer outfit that he wears to ride the bike, that looks so classic with the sweater over the shoulders and all that. Obviously, there's not a ton of plot holes to really investigate in Dead Poet Society. You either love the film or you think it's boring, I guess. But there are character nuances or things that are maybe a little like, why would he do that, or why wouldn't he do that? Um, like for example, right at the very beginning, the banners. Cameron is holding tradition. Mr. Hopkins is holding honor. Knox is holding discipline, and Neil is holding excellence. So if we're going strictly by character, obviously we haven't been introduced to any of them yet except for their faces. Neil holding excellence makes sense. Mr. Hopkins holding honor makes sense for his character at the end, which some people argue is actually the better character arc than Todd, even though we don't even see Mr. Hopkins in more than a couple little glances. But kind of a wasted character overall in a way. But we're not going to, in the rewrite, we're still not going to, like I said, tamper with that too much. Cameron, though, holding tradition instead of discipline. See, I think that Cameron and Knox could be switched there, because Knox holding tradition, he feels like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Even when he makes the phone call to Chris, he says, my parents will kill me. Why would your parents kill you for asking a girl out on a date? I mean, is it because it's Chet's girl? Or is he not supposed to date girls? Or is he just not supposed to date Mr. Danbury's son's girl? In the original outtakes from the Laserdisc, Chet was actually expelled from Welton, and there's a backstory there. And Mr. Danbury is actually this kind of lame comedy character, almost buffoon thing. So that makes it even worse. Like, yeah, steal the girl. That guy's a total idiot, would, I think, be the dad's response. Anyway. And then the name of the school paper is the Welton Honor. So it would have been kind of funny if instead of Mr. Hopkins, maybe they had Charlie Dalton holding the honor banner, since in a way he kind of, one criticism argues that he defends Mr. Keating's honor, and that's why he gets expelled. But he doesn't defend Mr. Keating's honor to the school. He defends Mr. Keating's honor to Richard Cameron, and that's when he punches Cameron, and that's what gets him expelled, not his refusal to sign the document, as this, other review kind of said. And then another, that review, it was kind of this like, they had flipped the script, and I don't know, they were trying to push some kind of pro-suicide. Neil had already lived when he was in the play, therefore it was okay that he died kind of slant on it. I don't think anybody else in the world ever had that as their takeaway, including Mr. Keating. It was more about like, wow, this is, look at the selfish act that causes, the downfall of Cameron, getting expelled, kind of almost the downfall of Todd, but then Todd finds his own redemption. Mr. Keating gets fired, but he gets his redemption too. But that's because of his interaction with Todd, as, the aftermath of Neil, not like because Neil caused some other real positive change. I think Todd gets more empowered because of this interaction between Nuwanda and Mr. Cameron than just because Neil is now no longer around to be his voice. Although, again, a little more nuanced than you can really put in a rewrite, because that would all be subtext or, unconscious thoughts or whatever. In this movie doesn't have any voiceover. There's no like long, endless scenes of Todd when he is sitting on his bed. Yeah, he's writing a poem or something, but we're not hearing his thoughts while he's writing the poem. Oh, the inner, we get little glimpses where they read a couple of the lines and then Neil grabs the paper and reads the lines, but we're not getting this overload of extra layer of talk. Then I met my roommate Neil. What an outgoing chap he was. That kind of over the top kind of thing. I would like a little clarification if the soccer scene takes place on Saturday or Sunday. There's also in the deleted scenes the extras where Todd wanted to do rowing and he gets stuck in soccer and blah blah blah. And that kind of reminded me of high school because that was kind of the way it was. Like, no, I wanted to run hurdles in track. No, you're gonna run distance. Like, like no, why can't I choose my own destiny? And so, I'm kind of segueing immediately almost. Like I said, I'm not doing a ton of rewrites. If I went scene by scene, this would be a much longer video. But I think we're going to have, if we had a sequel, we would have almost the exact same movie now play. Again, why we don't get a lot of backstory with, say, even Charlie Dalton. All we know about Charlie Dalton is he's a wealthy family, and yet he's shown wearing dirty Converse sneakers and playing a saxophone. Like, nobody knew he played saxophone. Now all of a sudden he's, brilliant in the cave, and everybody's all like, wow, I'm impressed. We didn't know you could do that. Like, you've lived with this dude for 4 years and you didn't know he could play a sax. The bagpipe guy goes down by the river and practices in the evening. Where does Charlie go that all of a sudden he can just throw down, And mostly he's like the Chase Girls character, right? And then all of a sudden, so you can almost see him like, or you cut Neil out of the movie and replace him with Charlie, where, all of a sudden he wants to be Stan Getz or Paul Desmond or whatever. No, you're going to be a banker. Exact same story. I had thought of kind of a sequel idea way back when, where, on Christmas vacation or something, if Todd went to New York City and visited with Charlie and maybe Knox or one of the other characters kind of all got together, what would, but probably not enough conflict to make it too interesting since they'd all be in college. Where in the early 60s, unless you're stuck in the ROTC, you're kind of doing whatever that you want anyway. And, or Charlie could have already been dropped out of school or kicked out of school, and now he's slumming around trying to be a musician. I thought maybe there was an angle there, but I never, wrote the whole thing. Let's see. Like I said, I didn't want to read too many of these. I saw another video where the guy had made a big argument about how the light was a big metaphor, but then he totally skipped the part where Mr. Keating turns off the light when he shows Todd's face on the desk. And then there were some people who had to point out that Robin Williams killed himself. It's like, oh yeah, well that's true, but he was already like old and successful. At least he didn't like die when he was young, when he was, battling his own issues and whatnot. That could be another long video right there too. Although I liked this one where the guy says he talks to the boys, with dignity and respect, and the one guy says, I don't think telling someone he has an unfortunate last name is respectful. Yeah, I guess that you could kind of take it. He's not like too over the top about it. He makes fun of them in other ways, especially Mr. Hopkins and even Mr. Dalton, I think, to an extent. Let's see. Then there was, some people who said it was boring and other things. Obviously, most people just think it's sad and relevant and, stuff about, the tragedy of Mr. Perry learning nothing from the death of his own son. Obviously, that's kind of part of the crux of the movie. Mr. Keating wouldn't be fired, so you can't change that. if you give Mr. Perry sudden insight and he comes to the school praising Mr. Keating, we don't really get any character arc with Todd or Mr. Hopkins or any of that. So, you might want to change that to, fulfill some deeper internal thing, but I wouldn't change that about the film. Uh, like I said, if you went scene by scene, there might be little nitpicky stuff, but most of the stuff I think I would change is augment some of the backstory or some of the dynamics, because we really don't see any relation with these characters and their parents except for what 2 or 3 scenes with Mr. Perry and 2 scenes with Todd's parents. And that's pretty much it. And we have to infer everything else from them. And for the most part, it works. I mean, like I said, you love the film or you hate it. So there's not a lot of in between. And I think most people who see the film appreciate it on some level, even if it's mostly visually or mostly nostalgia or whatever. So I guess I'll shut up this week now.